My sister ruined my love life for a decade, so I gave her a taste of her own medicine. I was 26 when I finally discovered the truth about Emma. For 10 years, every relationship I'd tried to build had crumbled in the same mysterious way. Guys would suddenly become distant, claiming I was seeing someone else, or that I'd said things I never remembered saying. I started believing I was the problem. Maybe I was just terrible at relationships. Then Jake called me out of the blue. My college boyfriend. The one I'd been crazy about until he ghosted me junior year. His voice was shaky, apologetic. "I need to tell you something that's been eating at me for years," he said. "About why we broke up." My stomach dropped. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Your sister showed me screenshots of texts from you," he continued. "Messages saying you were tired of me, that you'd found someone better. She said you were too nice to break up with me directly." The room started spinning. "What screenshots?" "I know now they were fake. I'm so sorry I believed her." That night, I called every ex-boyfriend I could track down. Same story, different details. Emma had systematically destroyed every relationship I'd ever had. She'd told Marcus I was moving across the country. She'd convinced Ryan I'd cheated with his best friend. Each lie perfectly crafted to end things quickly and permanently. The cruelest irony? Emma was about to marry David, a sweet investment banker whose family money was funding their $50,000 dream wedding. Our parents had already put down $15,000 in non-refundable deposits. I spent the next week building my case. Social media is forever, and Emma wasn't as careful as she thought. Screenshots of her on dating apps while exclusively with David. Photos from bars with other guys during their relationship. Messages to friends complaining about David being boring but rich. I created an anonymous email and sent everything to David. No explanations, no accusations, just evidence with timestamps. The explosion happened at Sunday dinner. Emma burst through our parents' front door, mascara streaming, screaming about someone trying to sabotage her happiness. David had confronted her that morning. She was spinning it as a jealous ex-boyfriend, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Someone sent David lies about me," she sobbed to our parents. "Fake screenshots trying to make me look like a cheater." Our mother wrapped Emma in her arms, shooting me a suspicious look. Who would do such a horrible thing? I stayed silent, cutting my pot roast with surgical precision. The wedding planning ground to a halt. David stopped returning Emma's calls. Our parents tried desperately to salvage their investment, pressuring Emma to fix whatever misunderstanding this was. 2 weeks later, the whole family gathered for an intervention. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all there to help Emma save her engagement. The financial pressure was enormous. The venue wanted their final payment, and caterers were threatening to forfeit deposits. Emma sat in the center of our parents' living room, playing the victim perfectly. "I don't understand why someone would want to hurt me like this," she whispered. That's when my phone rang. Another ex-boyfriend, this one from high school. I stepped outside to take the call, and Emma followed, probably hoping to eavesdrop on more evidence of the conspiracy against her. "I heard through mutual friends that someone's been messing with your relationships," he said. "I need to tell you what really happened between us. What your sister did that night 10 years ago." Emma went completely white. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You can't answer that," she whispered frantically. "Please don't answer that. You don't understand what you're about to find out." The terror in her voice told me everything. Whatever Emma had done in high school was so much worse than fake screenshots and lies. This was the secret she'd been protecting all these years. I looked at my sister, watching her face crumble as she realized her worst nightmare was about to be exposed. "Tell me," I said into the phone, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Tell me exactly what happened that night." Emma whispered one word that made my blood run cold. "Please." But I was done with her pleas. 10 years of destroyed relationships. 10 years of thinking I was unlovable. 10 years of Emma watching me cry over boys who disappeared without explanation, while she comforted me with fake sympathy. "Go ahead, Cameron," I said into the phone, never breaking eye contact with Emma. The story Cameron told me that day changed everything I thought I knew about my sister. "It was homecoming night, senior year," Cameron began. "You remember how we'd been dating for 8 months? I was going to ask you to prom that night after the dance." I did remember. Cameron and I had been inseparable senior year. He was my first love, the boy I'd given my virginity to, the one I'd imagined spending my life with, until he suddenly stopped talking to me the Monday after homecoming. "Your sister cornered me in the parking lot after the dance," Cameron continued. "She was crying, said she had something terrible to tell me, something about you that she couldn't keep secret anymore." Emma was shaking her head frantically, mouthing, "Stop," over and over. "She told me you'd been cheating on me, said she'd caught you with Brandon Fitzgerald multiple times. She had photos, texts, everything. She begged me not to confront you about it because it would tear your family apart." My blood ran cold. Brandon Fitzgerald had been Emma's boyfriend senior year. "But that's not even the worst part," Cameron said, his voice getting quieter. "She said you told her you were only dating me to make Brandon jealous, that you'd been laughing about how pathetic and gullible I was." The pieces started falling into place. Emma had been dating Brandon, but she'd always been jealous that he seemed more interested in talking to me than her. She'd accused me multiple times of flirting with him, which I'd always denied. "I was 17 and heartbroken," Cameron continued. "I believed her completely, especially when she showed me those photos of you and Brandon together." "What photos?" I asked, though I was starting to suspect. "You two in his car, kissing, your hands on his chest." Pretty convincing stuff. Emma had been good with Photoshop even back then. She'd taken photos from our group hangs and manipulated them to look like intimate moments between Brandon and me. "I'm so sorry I never gave you a chance to explain," Cameron said. Seeing those photos destroyed me. I couldn't even look at you after that." I hung up the phone and turned to face Emma. She'd sunk down onto our parents' porch steps, her face buried in her hands. "You broke up Cameron and me so you could have Brandon to yourself," I said. She looked up, mascara streaming. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Emma? Explain to me how destroying my relationship was justified." The family intervention was still happening inside. Through the window, I could see our aunts and uncles debating wedding venue options, completely unaware that Emma's entire life was imploding on the front porch. "Brandon liked you," Emma whispered. "He was always asking about you, talking about how smart and funny you were." I could see the way he looked at you, so you decided to eliminate the competition. I loved him, she screamed, standing up. I loved him, and he was going to leave me for you, just like every other guy I've ever dated. The raw pain in her voice caught me off guard. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered 10 years of destroyed relationships, 10 years of believing I was the problem. So you've been sabotaging my love life ever since? Because of some high school insecurity? You don't understand, she said, starting to pace. After Brandon and I broke up anyway because he figured out I was lying about you, I realized something. Guys always preferred you. You were prettier, smarter, funnier. I could never compete. So instead of working on yourself, you decided to tear me down. I tried to stop, she said desperately. After college, I thought I was done. But then you started dating Michael, and he was perfect. Rich, handsome, successful, everything I wanted, and I could see he was falling for you hard. Michael. My post-college boyfriend, who disappeared after 6 months of what I thought was a perfect relationship. What did you tell him? That you were using him for his money. That you told me he was just a stepping stone until you found someone better. Each revelation hit like a physical blow. Michael had been the one I'd thought I might marry. His sudden coldness and eventual ghosting had devastated me for months. And Trevor? I asked, naming another ex. Told him you'd said his family was trashy and you were embarrassed to be seen with him. Dominic? That you'd laughed about his accent and called him stupid behind his back. Every single relationship systematically destroyed by the person who was supposed to love and support me the most. Why, Emma? Just tell me why you hated me so much. She stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, raw jealousy mixed with desperation. Because everyone always chose you, she said quietly. Mom and Dad thought you were the smart one, the responsible one. Teachers loved you, boys loved you. I was just Emma, the pretty one, the fun one. But that wasn't enough. So you decided to make sure I'd be alone forever. I thought if I could just find someone first, get married first, prove I was worthy of love, then I could stop. I could let you be happy. The front door opened and our mother appeared. Girls, what's going on out here? We're trying to figure out the seating arrangements for— She stopped when she saw Emma's face. Honey, what's wrong now? This was my moment. I could expose everything, destroy Emma's wedding, turn our family against her. Or I could walk away and finally be free of her manipulation. Emma needs to tell you something, I said, looking directly at my sister. Something she should have told you years ago. Our mother's eyes darted between us. What's happening? Emma looked at me with a mixture of terror and resignation. She knew I had her backed into a corner with no escape route. Emma started, then stopped. I need to call David. David's not taking your calls, remember? Our mother said gently. But we're working on fixing this misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Emma interrupted. I cheated on him, multiple times, with multiple people. Our mother's face went white. What? And that's not all, Emma continued, the words pouring out now like she couldn't stop them. I've been sabotaging every relationship she's ever had. She pointed at me. For 10 years. I've lied to every guy she's dated, telling them she was cheating or using them or talking about them behind their backs. The silence stretched on forever. Our mother looked like she'd been slapped. You did what? I was jealous, Emma whispered. I was jealous and scared, and I thought if I could just keep her from finding someone before me, then what? Our mother's voice was rising. Then you'd feel better about yourself? Then you'd somehow deserve love more than your sister? The front door opened again and our father appeared, followed by Uncle Rich and Aunt Patricia. What's all the shouting about? Our father asked. Our mother turned to him, her face a mask of controlled fury. Your daughter has been systematically destroying her sister's relationships for a decade, and she's been cheating on David. The family intervention inside came to a screeching halt as everyone poured out onto the porch. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all staring at Emma like they'd never seen her before. The wedding's off, our father said quietly after our mother filled everyone in. Obviously. Dad, please, Emma started. No. His voice cut through her plea like a knife. Do you have any idea what you've done? Financially? Emotionally? To this family? We'll lose all the deposits, Aunt Patricia said, already calculating. The venue, the caterer, the flowers. Forget the money, Uncle Rich said. What about David's family? They're going to think we raised a monster. Emma was crying openly now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Part of me felt vindicated. She was finally facing consequences for years of manipulation and lies. But another part of me just felt empty. I need to go, I said quietly. Where? Our mother asked. I don't know. Away from this. Away from all of this. I started walking toward my car, but Emma grabbed my arm. Please don't leave me like this, she begged. I know I don't deserve it, but please. You're my sister. I looked at her tear-stained face, remembering all the times she'd held me while I cried over the boys she'd driven away. All the times she'd brought me ice cream and told me their loss. All the fake sympathy and comfort she'd offered while knowing she was the cause of my pain. You were never my sister, I said. Sisters don't destroy each other. They protect each other. I got in my car and drove away, leaving Emma collapsed on the porch surrounded by our disappointed family. For the next week, my phone rang constantly. Emma, our parents, various relatives all trying to smooth things over, to find some way to fix what couldn't be fixed. I ignored them all. I was staying at my friend Zoe's apartment, trying to figure out what came next. 10 years of my life had been built on lies. Every relationship I'd mourned, every night I'd spent wondering what was wrong with me, every moment of self-doubt Emma had caused, it all felt like wasted time. You need to process this, Zoe said, bringing me coffee. Maybe see someone, a therapist. I need to figure out if any of them would give me a second chance, I said, scrolling through my phone contacts. Cameron, Michael, Trevor, Dominic. What if I told them the truth? What if they've all moved on, married other people? What if opening those wounds just causes more pain? She had a point. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to try. That somewhere in my past was a relationship Emma had destroyed that deserved a chance to be rebuilt. I started with Cameron since I'd already talked to him. When I called back, he answered immediately. I've been thinking about our conversation, he said. about what your sister did. I'm sorry you got caught up in her mess. I'm sorry I never gave you a chance to defend yourself. I was so hurt by those photos. They looked so real. They were manipulated. Emma was always good with computers. There was a long pause. Are you seeing anyone now? The question caught me off guard. No. You? I'm married, he said gently. 5 years now. But if things had been different, if I'd known the truth back then, I'm happy you found someone, I said, and meant it. You deserved better than what happened. So did you. I hung up feeling oddly at peace about Cameron. He'd moved on, found love, built a life. Emma's interference had hurt us both, but he'd recovered. Maybe that was enough. Michael was next. He answered on the third ring, his voice confused. This is unexpected, he said when I identified myself. I need to tell you something about why we broke up. I explained everything. Emma's lies, her systematic campaign to destroy my relationships, the real reason he thought I was using him for money. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Michael, I'm here. I'm just processing. Your sister told me you'd said I was a placeholder until you found someone successful. I never said that. I never thought that. I was falling in love with you. Another long pause. I was falling in love with you too. When she told me what you'd supposedly said, it destroyed me. I thought I'd been such a fool. You weren't a fool. You were manipulated by someone who's very good at lying. Are you free for dinner this week? He asked suddenly. I'd like to talk more. In person. My heart skipped. I'd like that. We made plans for Thursday, and I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. But first, I had to deal with my family. The next day I drove back to my parents' house. Emma's car wasn't in the driveway, but I could see our mother peeking through the curtains. She opened the door before I could knock. Thank God, she said, pulling me into a hug. I was so worried you'd never come back. Where's Emma? Staying at Aunt Patricia's. She's too embarrassed to face anyone right now. We sat in the living room where just days before, Emma had played the victim while our family tried to save her wedding. I keep thinking about all the times you cried over those boys, our mother said. All the times I told you the right one would come along eventually. If I'd known, you couldn't have known. She was careful. But I should have seen something. Some sign that she was capable of this level of cruelty. She's sick, Mom. This level of jealousy and manipulation isn't normal. Our father appeared in the doorway looking older than I'd ever seen him. I've been going over the finances, he said. We've lost most of the wedding deposits, but insurance might cover some of it. The bigger issue is David's family. Have they said anything? His mother called yesterday. She was polite, but you could tell she thinks we raised a sociopath. Maybe we did, our mother said quietly. Don't blame yourselves, I said. Emma made her own choices. But we enabled her, our father said. All those times she'd charm her way out of trouble, all the times we made excuses for her behavior, it was true. Emma had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Her beauty and charisma had gotten her out of countless scrapes over the years. Our parents had always just chalked up her selfishness to youthful immaturity. She needs professional help, I said. Real therapy, not just family counseling. She's agreed to go, our mother said. Dr. Morrison recommended someone who specializes in personality disorders. Good, and I need some time to figure out who I am without her manipulation. Of course, take all the time you need. As I was leaving, our mother grabbed my hand. I'm proud of you, she said, for standing up to her, for not letting her destroy you completely. I'm not sure I haven't been destroyed. You're here. You're fighting back. That's not destroyed. That's surviving. Thursday's dinner with Michael was awkward at first. We met at a small Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place we'd gone to when we were dating years earlier. You look good, he said as we sat down. So do you. We ordered wine and spent the first hour catching up on our lives. He'd been promoted twice since our breakup, was considering buying a house, had dated a few people, but nothing serious. I kept wondering what I'd done wrong, he admitted over our entrees. Your sister's story about you using me. It made sense with how suddenly you seemed to pull away. I never pulled away. I was responding to you pulling away, because I thought you'd said those things about me. We stared at each other across the table, both realizing how perfectly Emma had orchestrated our downfall. She'd created a feedback loop of misunderstanding that spiraled until we both gave up. Do you think, Michael started, then stopped. Never mind. What? Do you think we could try again? I know it's been years and we're different people now, but the hope in his voice was almost painful to hear. I'd like that, I said. I'd like that a lot. We spent the rest of dinner talking about what a second chance might look like, taking things slow, rebuilding trust, figuring out who we were now versus who we'd been then. When he walked me to my car, he kissed me softly, tentatively, like he was afraid I might disappear again. This time, no outside interference, he said. This time, we communicate directly with each other. Deal. Over the next few weeks, Michael and I fell back into each other's lives with surprising ease. It was like putting on a favorite sweater that still fit perfectly despite years in storage. We remembered why we'd worked so well together, shared humor, similar values, an easy physical chemistry that hadn't dimmed. But Emma wasn't done causing problems. She'd been calling Michael directly, trying to convince him that I was manipulating him, that this reconciliation was all part of some elaborate revenge plot against her. She says you're only dating me to hurt her, Michael told me over coffee one morning. What do you think? I think she's desperate and grasping at straws, but I also think she's not going to stop. He was right. The calls escalated to showing up at his office, then at his apartment. Emma was having a complete breakdown as her perfect life crumbled around her. David had officially called off the wedding and was demanding she return the engagement ring. Our parents had cut off her credit cards and told her she needed to get a job and support herself. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves after word spread about her behavior. I need to confront her, I told Michael. This has to end. Are you sure that's a good idea? She's clearly not stable right now. That's exactly why it needs to happen now, before she does something really crazy. I arranged to meet Emma at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, public place, witnesses if things went badly. She looked terrible when she walked in. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd lost weight, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't been sleeping. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I'm not here to forgive you, Emma. I'm here to make sure you understand that your harassment of Michael needs to stop. I'm not harassing him. I'm trying to protect him. From what? From you using him to get back at me." I stared at her across the table. Even now, even after everything, she couldn't accept that my life wasn't about her. Michael and I are together because we care about each other, because we had something real that you destroyed, and we're trying to rebuild it. None of this is about you. Everything is about me, she said, her voice getting shrill. "Don't you see? You're punishing me by taking away the only chance I had at happiness. Your chance at happiness wasn't dependent on my misery, Emma. That's what you never understood." "Yes, it was!" she screamed, loud enough that other customers turned to stare. It was the only way I could feel good about myself, knowing that at least I wasn't alone, at least I wasn't the family failure. The raw honesty in her outburst was startling. For the first time, I was seeing the real Emma. Not the manipulative schemer, but the deeply insecure woman underneath. You could have talked to someone about feeling that way. You could have gotten help. I tried therapy in college. The therapist said I had narcissistic tendencies and needed intensive treatment. I stopped going, because facing the truth was too hard. Because admitting I was broken meant admitting you were better than me. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Around us, the coffee shop hummed with normal conversation. Normal people living normal lives without this level of family dysfunction. "I'm going to say this once, and then I never want to see you again," I said finally. "Stay away from Michael. Stay away from my friends. Stop calling our parents to complain about how unfair everyone's being to you. Get therapy. Real therapy. Fix yourself. And if I don't, then I'll get a restraining order, and I'll make sure everyone we know understands exactly what kind of person you are." Emma's face crumpled. "You're really going to cut me out of your life forever? You cut yourself out when you decided my happiness was less important than your ego." I stood to leave, but Emma grabbed my wrist. "Please," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve it, but please don't abandon me completely. I don't have anyone else. You made sure of that, didn't you?" I pulled free and walked away, leaving Emma crying alone in the booth. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Michael and I have been rebuilding our relationship slowly and carefully. We've learned to communicate better, to trust each other more completely, to recognize the warning signs of outside manipulation. Emma did get therapy, according to our mother. She's been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. She's on medication and working with a specialist, but the prognosis for long-term change isn't great. She's also moved across the country to start fresh somewhere no one knows her history. Our parents helped with the moving expenses in exchange for her promise to leave us all alone. David sent me a thank you card for exposing Emma before he married her. He'd apparently been having second thoughts about their relationship, but felt trapped by the wedding planning momentum. My revelation gave him the excuse he needed to escape. "I dodged a bullet," he wrote. "I hope you find the happiness she tried to steal from you. I'm working on it. Michael and I are talking about moving in together soon. We're taking it slow, making sure we're choosing each other for the right reasons this time." But the damage Emma caused runs deeper than just destroyed relationships. For 10 years, she made me doubt my ability to connect with people, to be worthy of love, to trust my own judgment about men and relationships. Unlearning those insecurities is an ongoing process. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never found out the truth. Would Emma have kept sabotaging my relationships forever? Would I have eventually given up on love entirely? Or would she have finally found her own happiness and let me find mine? I'll never know, and I try not to dwell on it. The important thing is that the truth came out when it did, before I'd completely given up hope. Last week, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 5 words. "I'm sorry. I love you." I knew it was Emma, but I deleted it without responding. Love isn't supposed to be destructive. Love isn't supposed to tear someone down to build yourself up. Love isn't supposed to hurt. What Emma felt for me wasn't love. It was possession, control, fear. Real love would have wanted me to be happy, even if it meant I found something she didn't have. I've learned to recognize the difference now. With Michael, with my friends, with my family, real love builds you up. Real love celebrates your successes. Real love doesn't require you to be small so someone else can feel big. Emma taught me that lesson in the cruelest way possible, but she taught it to me nonetheless. And maybe, in some twisted way, that's the only thank you she'll ever get from me. The coffee shop where I confronted Emma has become a regular spot for Michael and me. We go there every few weeks, sitting in the same booth where I finally stood up to my sister. It's become a symbol of sorts, a reminder that I'm strong enough to fight for my own happiness. "Any regrets?" Michael asked me last Sunday as we shared a piece of chocolate cake. "About Emma?" "About any of it. The confrontation, cutting her out, this." He gestured between us. I considered the question seriously. Did I regret exposing Emma's lies? Did I regret ending her engagement and causing a family rift? Did I regret choosing my own happiness over keeping the peace? "No," I said finally. "No regrets. Even though your family will never be the same, my family was never what I thought it was anyway. It was built on Emma's lies and everyone's willingness to look the other way." Michael nodded, understanding. His own family had its share of dysfunction, though nothing quite as dramatic as mine. "What about us?" he asked. "Any regrets about giving me another chance?" I reached across the table and took his hand. "Best decision I've made in years." And I meant it. Not just because Michael and I were happy together, but because choosing to fight for what I wanted instead of accepting what Emma decided I deserved had changed something fundamental in me. I was no longer the girl who quietly accepted other people's versions of her story. I was no longer willing to be small so someone else could feel big. I had found my voice, and I intended to use it. A few weeks later, I got a call from Cameron, my high school boyfriend. "I hope you don't mind me calling," he said, "but I wanted you to know something." "What's that?" "I told my wife about what happened with us, about your sister and the fake photos. She said something that really stuck with me." "What did she say?" "She said that what your sister did to us was like stealing years of our lives. Years we could have been happy together if she hadn't interfered." I hadn't thought about it that way, but he was right. Emma had stolen time from me, from Cameron, from Michael, from all the men she'd lied to. Time we could never get back. She's right, I said. I'm sorry for what we lost. I'm sorry too, but I'm glad you found the truth eventually. I'm glad you're getting your life back. After we hung up, I sat thinking about the concept of stolen time. Emma had taken years from me, but she'd also taken years from herself. All the energy she'd put into sabotaging my relationships, all the mental space she'd devoted to jealousy and manipulation, all the opportunities she'd missed while focused on tearing me down. In trying to steal my happiness, she'd forfeited her own. That night, I called my parents to check in. They were still adjusting to life without Emma's drama, still processing the reality of what she'd done. How are you holding up? I asked our mother. Better, she said. It's strange, but the house feels more peaceful without her here. I didn't realize how much tension she brought into every situation. What about Dad? He's struggling more. He keeps saying he should have seen the signs, should have stopped her before it got this bad. It's not his fault. I know that. But you know your father, he likes to think he can fix everything. We talked for another hour about family dynamics, about healing, about moving forward. It was the most honest conversation I'd had with our mother in years, the kind of conversation that's only possible when everyone stops pretending everything is fine. As winter turned to spring, Michael and I found ourselves talking more seriously about the future. He'd gotten another promotion at work, I'd been accepted to a graduate program in counseling psychology, and we were both ready to take the next step in our relationship. I've been thinking, he said one evening as we walked through the park near his apartment, about what your sister put us through and what it taught us. What do you mean? We know what it's like to have our trust broken. We know what it's like to have someone come between us. So we also know how to protect what we have. He stopped walking and turned to face me. I love you, he said. I loved you 5 years ago, and I love you now. But this time, I'm not letting anyone or anything tear us apart. Not even me? I asked, half joking. Especially not you, he said, pulling me closer. You're stuck with me now. I kissed him under the streetlight, thinking about second chances and stolen time and the strange ways life circles back on itself. Emma had tried to destroy what Michael and I had, but in the end, she'd only made it stronger. A year later, we got engaged in that same park. When I called to tell my parents, our mother cried with joy. I'm so happy for you, she said. You deserve this. You deserve everything good. Is Emma still in therapy, still working on herself? She asked if she could send you a card congratulating you, but I told her not to. She needs to respect your boundaries. Thank you. Besides, our mother added, this day is about you and Michael, about your future. She doesn't get to be part of that story unless you decide she does. And I had decided. Emma would not be part of our wedding, our marriage, or our life together. The chapter of my story that included her was closed, and I wasn't interested in reopening it. Some people might call that unforgiving, but I call it self-preservation. Emma had already taken enough from me. She didn't get to take my wedding day too. The ceremony was small and perfect. Michael's family welcomed me warmly. My parents walked me down the aisle together, and my friend Zoe served as my maid of honor. During the reception, several people commented on how happy and peaceful I looked. You're glowing, Zoe said as we danced to the music. I haven't seen you this relaxed in years. I feel free, I told her. For the first time in my adult life, I feel completely free. Free from what? Free from waiting for the other shoe to drop. Free from wondering what I'm doing wrong. Free from living my life around someone else's insecurities. As the evening wound down, Michael and I sat at the head table watching our families mingle and laugh together. His parents had hit it off with mine, old college friends were reconnecting, and everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there. No drama, Michael observed. No family blow-ups. No unexpected revelations. No one trying to sabotage anything. Is this what normal families are like? I think so. Pretty boring, huh? I laughed. I love boring. Boring is underrated. Our honeymoon in Ireland was everything I'd dreamed of. We spent 2 weeks exploring countryside and small towns, eating amazing food, and talking about our plans for the future. Michael wanted to start trying for kids within a year or two. I wanted to finish my graduate program first, but we both agreed we wanted a family eventually. What if our kids ask about Emma someday? Michael asked one evening as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony. We'll tell them the truth, that sometimes family members make choices that hurt other family members, and that it's okay to set boundaries to protect yourself. Think she'll ever try to contact you again? Probably, but I won't respond. Ever? I considered this. Maybe if she gets genuinely better, if she takes full responsibility for what she did and proves she's changed. But that could take years, if it ever happens at all. And you're okay with that. I have to be. She showed me who she really is, and I believe her. When we returned from our honeymoon, I threw myself into graduate school, while Michael settled into his new role as director of his department. We bought a house in a neighborhood with good schools, adopted a dog named Finn, and started building the life we'd been denied years earlier. I found my calling in couples counseling, specifically working with partners who'd been hurt by family interference in their relationships. It turned out there were a lot of people dealing with manipulative siblings, controlling parents, and toxic in-laws. My personal experience, combined with my professional training, made me particularly effective at helping couples recognize and overcome these patterns. You have a gift for this, my supervisor told me after observing one of my sessions. These couples trust you in a way they don't trust other therapists. I've been where they are, I said. I know what it's like to have someone you love turn your relationship into a weapon. 3 years into our marriage, I got a letter forwarded through my parents' address. The return address was unfamiliar, but I recognized Emma's handwriting immediately. Michael found me in the kitchen, staring at the unopened envelope. From her? He asked. I nodded. Are you going to read it? I don't know. Part of me is curious, but part of me thinks it doesn't matter what she has to say. It's up to you, but if you do read it, maybe wait until I'm here with you. I appreciated his concern, but I also knew this was something I needed to face alone. That evening, after Michael went to bed, I opened the letter. It was 12 pages long, handwritten in Emma's careful script. She started by taking full responsibility for everything she'd done, listing each lie she'd told, each relationship she'd sabotaged, each way she'd hurt me over the years. The level of detail was both impressive and disturbing. She remembered things I'd forgotten, conversations I didn't even know she'd had. In the middle section, she described her therapy journey, the initial resistance, the gradual acceptance of her diagnoses, the hard work of understanding why she'd behaved the way she had. She'd been in intensive treatment for 3 years, first as an inpatient for 6 months, then in group therapy and individual sessions. "I know now that what I did to you wasn't love," she wrote. "It wasn't even really about you. It was about my own terror of being alone, of being less than, of being forgettable. I turned you into an enemy because it was easier than looking at my own emptiness." The final section was the hardest to read. She wrote about the consequences of her actions, not just for me, but for everyone she'd hurt. David had struggled to trust women for years after their breakup. Our parents had gone through their own therapy to understand how they'd enabled her behavior. Several mutual friends had cut ties with her completely. "I destroyed everything good in my life because I couldn't stand the thought of you having something I didn't have," she wrote. "I see now that happiness isn't a competition. There's enough for everyone, but I was too sick to understand that then." She ended by saying she didn't expect forgiveness, didn't expect a response, didn't expect anything from me at all. She just wanted me to know that she was sorry, that she was working on becoming a better person, and that she hoped I was happy. "I love you," she wrote in closing. "I know I have no right to say that after what I did, but it's true. I love you enough now to leave you alone forever if that's what you need." I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Then I sat in our quiet kitchen, thinking about forgiveness and healing and the complicated mathematics of family love. The next morning, I told Michael about the letter. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad," I said. "For her, for me, for all the years we lost, but also relieved, like maybe she really is getting better." "Are you going to respond?" "No, not yet anyway. Maybe not ever." She was right about one thing. Love sometimes means leaving someone alone. Michael kissed my forehead. "Whatever you decide, I support you." 2 weeks later, I was leading a group therapy session for couples affected by family manipulation when something shifted inside me. I was listening to a woman describe how her sister had tried to break up her marriage, and suddenly I understood something I hadn't before. The work I was doing, the healing I was facilitating for other families, it was only possible because of what Emma had put me through. My pain had become my purpose. Her cruelty had taught me compassion. The very thing that had almost destroyed me had become the foundation for helping others. That didn't excuse what she'd done. It didn't mean I had to forgive her or let her back into my life, but it meant her actions hadn't been purely destructive. Something good had grown from the ashes of our relationship. That night, I wrote a letter of my own, not to Emma, but to myself. I wrote about everything I'd learned, everything I'd survived, everything I'd built from the ruins of my trust. I wrote about Michael, about our marriage, about the family we were planning to start. I wrote about my career, my purpose, my hope for the future. Then I burned the letter in our fireplace, watching the words turn to ash and smoke. It felt like a ritual, a final release of the anger and pain I'd been carrying for so many years. "What was that about?" Michael asked, joining me on the couch. "Letting go," I said. "Finally, completely letting go. Of Emma? Of who I was when I was defined by what she did to me. I'm ready to just be me now, without that story." Michael pulled me closer. "I love who you are now." "I do too, finally." 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. As I sat in the doctor's office looking at the ultrasound image of our baby, I thought about the family we were creating. This child would grow up knowing love without conditions, support without competition, trust without betrayal, healthy heartbeat. The doctor said, "Everything looks perfect." Perfect. Such a simple word, but it felt revolutionary after years of dysfunction and manipulation. This baby would have a perfect start, not because nothing would ever go wrong, but because she would be wanted and loved and protected from the kind of toxicity that had defined my relationship with Emma. "It's a girl," the doctor announced at our 20-week appointment. Michael squeezed my hand, grinning. "A daughter." As I lay there watching our baby move on the ultrasound screen, I made a silent promise to her. She would never doubt her worth. She would never compete with her siblings for love. She would never have to choose between her family and her happiness. She would know, from the very beginning, that love multiplies rather than divides. That one person's success doesn't require another person's failure. That families are supposed to build each other up, not tear each other down. Emma had taught me all of this by showing me its opposite. In trying to destroy me, she'd shown me exactly what kind of person and what kind of parent I never wanted to be. Our daughter was born on a sunny Tuesday in May. We named her Grace, partly because we liked the name, but mostly because it felt like grace that had brought Michael and me back together. Grace that had shown me Emma's true nature before it was too late. Grace that had given us this second chance at happiness. Holding Grace for the first time, I felt a completeness I'd never experienced before. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Protective, nurturing, unconditional. This was what family was supposed to be. My parents flew in to meet their granddaughter, and for the first time in years, our family felt truly peaceful. There was no underlying tension, no drama waiting to explode, no sense that someone was about to sabotage the happiness we'd found. "She's beautiful," our mother said, cradling Grace. "She looks like you did as a baby, but hopefully with a better temperament," our father added, making us all laugh. That evening, as my parents prepared to leave, our mother pulled me aside. "Emma asked me to give you this," she said, handing me a small wrapped package. "I told her I couldn't promise you'd accept it, but she wanted me to try." Inside was a hand-knitted baby blanket, soft yellow with white trim. There was a note attached. "For Grace. May she always know how much she's loved. And Emma." I stared at the blanket, feeling a complex mix of emotions. It was beautiful, clearly made with care and skill. It was also a reminder that Emma was still out there, still thinking about us, still hoping for some connection. "What will you do with it?" our mother asked gently. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe put it away for now. Decide later." That night, I showed the blanket to Michael. "It's lovely," he said. "Whatever you want to do with it is fine with me. She's trying to be part of Grace's life, even from a distance. Are you okay with that?" I thought about it. I think I can accept that Emma exists, that she cares about us in her own way, without letting her back into our lives. This blanket doesn't change anything between us, but it doesn't have to be thrown away either. I folded the blanket and put it in Grace's closet, behind the others. Not displayed prominently, but not discarded either. A small acknowledgement of a complicated truth, that love and harm could come from the same person, that forgiveness didn't require reconciliation, that Grace would someday have an aunt she might never meet. As Grace grew from baby to toddler, I found myself watching for signs of the traits that had made Emma so destructive. Was Grace jealous when other children got attention? Did she try to manipulate situations to her advantage? Did she show empathy for others, or only concern for herself? "You're overthinking it," Michael said one evening as I fretted about Grace's reaction to her friend's birthday party. "She's 2. All 2-year-olds are a little self-centered. But what if she turns out like Emma? She won't. Because we won't let her. Because we'll teach her that other people's happiness doesn't threaten her own." He was right, of course. Grace was growing up in a completely different environment than Emma and I had. There was no competition for our parents' attention, no scarcity of love or approval, no reason to see other people as threats to her security. When Grace turned 3, we threw her a small party in our backyard. Watching her play with her friends, sharing toys, and taking turns on the swing set, I felt a deep satisfaction. This was what childhood should look like. Joyful, secure, free from the undercurrents of jealousy and competition that had poisoned my own growing up. "She's a good kid," Zoe observed, watching Grace help a younger child reach the monkey bars. "Sweet, considerate. Nothing like, well, she's nothing like Emma," I agreed. Thank God. Later that night, as I tucked Grace into bed, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Mama, why don't I have any aunties?" I'd been dreading this conversation, but I'd also been preparing for it. "You do have an auntie," I said carefully, "but she lives very far away, and we don't see her." "Why not?" "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other grown-ups. When that happens, they might decide not to see each other anymore." Grace considered this with the seriousness only a 3-year-old could bring to complex family dynamics. "Did your auntie hurt you?" "Yes, she did." "Did you tell her to say sorry?" "She did say sorry, but sometimes saying sorry isn't enough to fix what got broken." Grace nodded as if this made perfect sense to her. "Daddy says if I hurt someone, I have to say sorry and not do it again." "That's right. But your auntie kept hurting people even after she said sorry, so we decided it was safer to stay away from her." "Oh." Grace was quiet for a moment. "Will I ever meet her?" "Maybe someday when you're much older. But for now, you have lots of people who love you and would never hurt you. Like you and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa?" "Exactly like that." Grace seemed satisfied with this explanation. She fell asleep holding the stuffed elephant Michael's parents had given her, surrounded by love and security Emma and I had never known at her age. Over the next few years, Emma's name came up occasionally in family conversations, usually when my parents mentioned getting updates through mutual acquaintances. She'd finished her psychology degree, was working at a crisis counseling center, had been in a stable relationship for 2 years. "She seems to be doing well," our mother would say carefully, "really working on herself." I was glad to hear it, genuinely. Emma's healing didn't change what she'd done to me, but I didn't wish her continued suffering either. I just wished it from a distance. When Grace started kindergarten, she came home one day with questions about family trees. "My teacher said everyone has aunts and uncles and cousins," she announced, "but I don't have any cousins." "That's because your auntie doesn't have children," I explained. "What about Uncle Michael's family?" "Uncle Michael is Daddy's brother, and he doesn't have children either." Grace absorbed this information with the adaptability of childhood. Her family was smaller than some of her classmates, but it was hers and it was full of love. That seemed to be enough for her. As Grace grew older, she occasionally asked more detailed questions about Emma. Why didn't we talk to her? What had she done that was so bad? Would Grace ever be able to have a relationship with her aunt? I answered these questions as honestly as I could, in age-appropriate ways. I didn't want to demonize Emma, but I also didn't want to minimize the impact of her actions. "Your aunt was very sick when I was younger," I told Grace when she was 8. "Not sick in her body, but sick in her mind and heart. She did things that hurt me and other people because she was jealous and scared." "Is she still sick?" "She's getting better, but it takes a very long time to heal from that kind of sickness, and sometimes the people who got hurt need to protect themselves by staying away." Grace nodded thoughtfully. "Like how we stay away from mean dogs even if they might be nice now?" That's a good way to think about it. The truth was, I'd been getting updates on Emma through our parents for years. She'd completed multiple rounds of therapy, had maintained stable employment and relationships, and by all accounts was a genuinely different person than she'd been during my 20s. But I'd also learned that change, even genuine change, doesn't erase history. Emma might have become a healthier person, but she was still the person who'd stolen years of my life, who'd sabotaged my relationships, who'd put her own insecurities above my happiness and well-being. I could be glad she was better without wanting her back in my life. When Grace turned 10, she asked if she could write a letter to Emma. "I've been thinking about my aunt," she said, "and I want to tell her about myself. I want her to know who I am." The request caught me off guard. In my efforts to protect Grace from Emma's toxicity, I'd perhaps underestimated my daughter's curiosity about the missing piece of our family puzzle. "Why do you want to write to her?" I asked. "Because she's the only aunt I'll ever have, and maybe if she knows I exist, she won't feel so sad about not being part of our family." The empathy in Grace's response nearly brought me to tears. This 10-year-old had somehow intuited the pain behind Emma's actions, the loneliness that had driven her to such destructive behavior. "What would you want to say to her?" Grace thought for a moment. "I'd tell her about school and my friends, and how much I love Mama and Daddy, and maybe I'd tell her that I hope she's happy now." "You can write the letter if you want to," I said after discussing it with Michael, "but I want you to understand that she might not write back. That's okay. I just want her to know about me." Grace spent an hour crafting her letter, filling 2 pages with careful handwriting and small drawings. She wrote about her favorite subjects in school, her pet hamster, her best friends. She included a photo of herself and ended with, "I hope you're doing well, Aunt Emma. Maybe someday we can meet. Love, Grace." I mailed the letter through my parents, not wanting to give Emma our direct address but willing to facilitate this small connection for Grace's sake. 2 weeks later, a package arrived for Grace. Inside was a beautiful journal with her name embossed on the cover, along with a letter from Emma. "Dear Grace," it began. "Thank you for your letter. It made me so happy to learn about you and to see what a kind, thoughtful person you're growing up to be. Your mama and daddy are very lucky to have you." Emma wrote about her work at the crisis center, her love of reading and hiking, her small apartment with its garden full of vegetables. She included photos of herself, older, calmer, with genuine warmth in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "I know I can't be part of your life the way other aunts are," she wrote, "but I want you to know that I think about you and love you from far away. I hope you'll use this journal to write down all your adventures and dreams." Grace treasured the journal and Emma's letter. She read it multiple times and carefully placed the photos in her special memory box. "She seems nice," Grace told me, "and sad, but nice. She probably is both of those things. Are you still mad at her?" I considered this carefully. Was I still angry with Emma? The white-hot rage I'd felt years earlier had long since cooled into something more like resigned disappointment. "I'm not mad anymore," I said honestly, "but I'm still hurt, and I still think it's better for our family if she stays where she is." Grace accepted this explanation without argument. She'd grown up in a stable, loving home where adults made decisions based on protecting the family, and she trusted that Michael and I were doing what was best. Over the following years, Grace and Emma exchanged occasional letters and packages. Emma sent books for Grace's birthday. Grace shared school photos and art projects. It was a distant but genuine relationship that seemed to satisfy both of them. When Grace turned 13, she asked if she could video chat with Emma. "I want to see her face when we talk," she said. "Letters are nice, but I want to know what she's like in real time." This request made me more nervous than the letters had. Written communication felt safer, more controlled. A video chat opened up possibilities for manipulation, for Emma to work her way deeper into Grace's affections. But Grace was 13 now, old enough to begin forming her own judgments about people. And Emma had been consistently appropriate in their correspondence, never asking Grace to keep secrets from us or trying to undermine our family dynamics. "One video chat," I agreed, with me present. "If it goes well, we can consider making it a regular thing." The call lasted 30 minutes. I sat just off camera, listening as Grace and Emma talked about books, school, and Grace's interest in marine biology. Emma was warm but not overly familiar, interested but not intrusive. She asked appropriate questions and respected Grace's boundaries when she didn't want to answer something. "Your mom and dad sound wonderful," Emma said near the end of the call. "I'm so glad you have such a loving family." "They are wonderful," Grace agreed. "I'm really lucky." "You are, and they're lucky to have you too." After Grace said goodbye and ended the call, she turned to me with shining eyes. "She's exactly how I imagined her," she said. "Kind of like you, but sadder." "How am I in her?" "You have the same smile, and you both get excited about the same things." It was true, I realized. Whatever else Emma had become, she was still my sister. We shared genetics, early experiences, ways of seeing the world. Grace had recognized something familiar in Emma, some echo of our shared past. "Did it feel good to talk to her?" I asked. "Yes, but it also felt weird, like meeting someone I should know but don't." "That makes sense. She is your aunt, but you've never really known her. Do you think you'll ever want to talk to her?" The question I'd been dreading for years. Grace had been building a relationship with Emma independent of my own history with her. Eventually, this was going to come to a head. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not yet." "That's okay. I understand why you need to protect yourself." My daughter's emotional intelligence never ceased to amaze me. At 13, she understood concepts of boundaries and self-protection that had taken me years to learn. That night, Michael and I talked about what Grace's relationship with Emma might mean for our family going forward. "She's old enough to have her own relationship with Emma," he pointed out. "Independent of your history." "I know. I just worry about Emma's influence on her. What if Emma really has changed? What if she's genuinely become the person she was pretending to be in that video chat? Then I'm happy for her. But that doesn't change what she did to us." "No, it doesn't, but it might change what's possible going forward." Michael was right, of course. People could change. Situations could evolve. The Emma who'd sabotaged my relationships might not be the same Emma who was carefully, respectfully building a relationship with our daughter, but I wasn't ready to test that theory yet. Grace could have her relationship with Emma, but I would maintain my distance and my boundaries. Some wounds heal, but they leave scars that serve as reminders of what to avoid in the future. As Grace entered high school, her correspondence with Emma became more sophisticated. They discussed books, current events, college plans. Emma shared stories from her work at the crisis center, and Grace talked about her volunteer work at the local animal shelter. "Aunt Emma helped someone my age yesterday," Grace told me one evening. "A girl whose parents were getting divorced, and she was blaming herself. That's nice that Emma can help people." She said it reminded her of how she felt when she was younger, like everything was her fault, but also like she had to control everything to feel safe. This insight into Emma's psychology was more than she'd ever shared with me directly. Through Grace, I was getting glimpses of how Emma understood her own past behavior, how her therapy had helped her recognize the patterns that had led to her destructiveness. "Did that help you understand her better?" I asked Grace. "Yeah, I think she was really scared when she was our age. And she didn't know how to handle feeling scared, so she tried to control everything around her. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, but it explains it. And it helps me understand why you had to protect yourself from her." Grace's ability to hold both compassion for Emma and understanding of my boundaries was remarkable. She never pressured me to reconcile with Emma, never suggested that Emma's improved mental health should override my need for safety. When Grace graduated from high school as valedictorian, she asked if Emma could attend the ceremony. "I know it's a big ask," she said, "and I'll understand if you say no, but she's been such a big part of my high school years through our letters and calls. I'd like her to see me graduate." This was the moment I'd been preparing for without realizing it. Grace was 18 now, an adult, capable of making her own decisions about relationships. She was also about to leave for college, to begin building a life separate from our daily protection and guidance. If Emma was going to be part of Grace's future, I needed to decide how I wanted to handle that reality. She can come, I said after discussing it with Michael, but she sits with my parents, not with us, and I don't want to talk to her. That's fair. Thank you for letting her be there. The night before graduation, I felt anxious in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I'd been so successful at keeping Emma out of my life that the thought of being in the same room with her felt overwhelming. You don't have to talk to her, Michael reminded me. You don't have to acknowledge her at all. You're just tolerating her presence for Grace's sake. What if seeing her brings back all those old feelings? What if I'm not as healed as I think I am? Then we'll deal with it, together, like we always do. The day of graduation, I spotted Emma immediately. She sat 3 rows behind us with my parents, looking older, but recognizably herself. She'd kept her hair long, and she wore a simple blue dress that I remembered from years ago. When Grace's name was called, Emma stood and applauded with genuine enthusiasm. I could see tears on her face as Grace crossed the stage to receive her diploma. For a moment, I felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness exactly, but a shared pride in this remarkable young woman we both loved. After the ceremony, Grace found Emma in the crowd and hugged her tightly. I watched from a distance as they talked animatedly, Emma's face glowing with happiness at finally meeting Grace in person. Our parents approached us first. She's been so good about respecting your boundaries, our mother said quietly. She hasn't asked to see you at all. She's just grateful to be here for Grace. I nodded, appreciating that Emma wasn't trying to use Grace's graduation as an opportunity to force a reconciliation. When Grace brought Emma over to thank us for letting her attend, I felt my chest tighten with old anxieties. But the woman standing before me seemed genuinely different from the sister I remembered. There was a calmness about her, a steadiness that hadn't been there before. Thank you for letting me be here, Emma said simply. It means everything to me. I nodded but didn't speak. Michael stepped forward and shook her hand. Grace talks about you often, he said. You've been a good pen pal to her. She's an extraordinary young woman. You've done an amazing job raising her. We think so too. The interaction lasted less than 2 minutes. Emma didn't push for more, didn't try to engage me directly, didn't overstep any boundaries. She simply thanked us again and returned to our parents. That evening, Grace thanked me for allowing Emma to attend. I know it was hard for you, she said, but it meant a lot to me that she was there. I could see how happy you were to meet her in person. She's exactly who I thought she'd be. Sad but kind. Proud of me, but not trying to take credit for who I am. I'm glad you got to meet her. Are you okay? After seeing her again? I considered the question. How did I feel after sharing space with Emma for the first time in over a decade? I'm okay, I said, surprised to realize it was true. Seeing her didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Maybe you're more healed than you realized. Maybe I was. Maybe the work I'd done to build a life free from Emma's manipulation had made me strong enough to be in her presence without being threatened by it. Grace left for college that fall, and her relationship with Emma continued to evolve. They video chatted monthly, and Emma sent care packages during finals week. When Grace struggled with roommate conflicts her sophomore year, Emma's advice about setting healthy boundaries proved invaluable. Aunt Emma really understands how to deal with difficult people, Grace told me during one of our weekly calls. I think her therapy taught her a lot about protecting yourself without being mean. It was ironic that Emma, who'd been so destructive in my life, was now helping my daughter navigate interpersonal challenges with wisdom and maturity. But I was grateful Grace had someone to talk to who understood the complexities of family dynamics and personal boundaries. When Grace announced her engagement to her college boyfriend during her senior year, she asked if Emma could be invited to the wedding. I know it's complicated, she said, but she's been such an important part of my life. It would feel wrong not to have her there. This conversation was different from the graduation discussion. A wedding was more intimate, more emotionally charged. Emma's presence would be much harder to ignore. I need to think about it, I told Grace. This is a bigger ask than graduation. Over the following weeks, Michael and I had long conversations about what Emma's presence at Grace's wedding would mean. We'd successfully coexisted at graduation, but a wedding involved hours together, shared meals, family photos. Maybe it's time, Michael said one evening. Maybe you're strong enough now to have her in your life in a limited way. I don't want her in my life. I want her in Grace's life, which is different. Is it though? Grace is our daughter. Her life is connected to ours. If Emma's going to be part of Grace's major milestones, she's going to intersect with our lives whether we plan for it or not. He was right, and I knew it. Grace was an adult building her own family, making her own decisions about relationships. If I wanted to be part of Grace's future, I needed to find a way to coexist with the people she chose to include in her life. Okay, I said finally, she can come to the wedding, but I want clear boundaries. She sits with my parents during the ceremony, sits at their table during dinner. No speeches, no special roles, no private conversations with me. That seems reasonable. When I told Grace about my decision, she cried with gratitude. Thank you, she said. I know this is hard for you, but it means everything to me. Planning a wedding while navigating complex family dynamics proved challenging. Grace was sensitive to my discomfort while also wanting Emma to feel included. We struck a careful balance. Emma was invited to the ceremony and reception, but not to the rehearsal dinner or any of the pre-wedding events. The week of the wedding, Emma arrived in town and stayed with my parents. Grace met her for coffee once, but otherwise respected the boundaries I'd set about limiting contact. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up with familiar anxiety. Today, I would spend several hours in the same space as Emma. There would be family photos, shared meals, unavoidable proximity. You don't have to talk to her, Michael reminded me as we got ready. You don't have to pretend to be friends. You just have to tolerate her presence for Grace's sake. I know, I'm just nervous. You've gotten through harder things than this. The ceremony was beautiful. Grace glowed as she walked down the aisle, her face radiant with happiness. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, I held my breath. Would Emma cause drama even now? But she remained quietly in her seat, tears streaming down her face as she watched Grace exchange vows. Her expression was one of pure joy and gratitude, not the attention-seeking behavior I'd feared. During the cocktail hour, I watched Emma interact with other family members. She was warm but not overwhelming, present but not attention-grabbing. She seemed to understand her role as a peripheral figure in Grace's life, important to Grace but not central to the broader family dynamic. When it came time for family photos, the photographer arranged various groupings. Emma was included in the extended family shots, but not in the immediate family portraits. She didn't complain or push for more inclusion, simply stepped forward when invited and stepped back when not. The closest I came to interacting with Emma directly was when she approached me during dinner. "I just wanted to thank you," she said quietly, standing a respectful distance away, "for letting me be here, for raising such an incredible daughter, for giving me the chance to be part of her life even in a small way." I nodded but didn't speak. After a moment, Emma returned to her table without pushing for more response. "That was hard," Michael observed, "but I did it. I didn't run away, didn't cause a scene, didn't let her presence ruin Grace's day. You should be proud of yourself." During Grace's reception speech, she thanked the important people in her life. She mentioned me and Michael, her grandparents, her new in-laws, her close friends. She also mentioned Emma. "To my Aunt Emma," Grace said, looking directly at her. "Thank you for showing me that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever, and that love can exist even across distance and difficult circumstances." The room erupted in applause, and I saw Emma wipe away tears. It was a gracious acknowledgement that honored their relationship without diminishing the pain Emma had caused others. After the reception, as guests were leaving, Emma approached me one final time. "I know you don't want to talk to me," she said, "but I need you to know something. What I did to you was unforgivable. I know that. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I just want you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm grateful you've allowed me to know Grace. She's the best thing to come from our family, and you deserve all the credit for that." Before I could respond, she turned and walked away, joining our parents who were waiting to drive her back to their house. "What did she say?" Michael asked. "That she's sorry, that she's grateful, that Grace is the best thing to come from our family." "How do you feel about that?" "Surprised. She didn't ask for anything, didn't try to manipulate the situation, just acknowledged what happened and moved on." That night, as Grace and her new husband left for their honeymoon, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you for today," she said, "for everything, for raising me with so much love, for protecting me when I needed it, for letting Aunt Emma be part of my wedding even though it was hard for you. I'd do anything for you, you know that. I do, and I love you for it." After Grace left, Michael and I went home and collapsed on our couch, exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. "So," Michael said, "that wasn't as terrible as we thought it would be." "No, it wasn't. Emma was appropriate. Respectful. She stayed in her lane. Do you think she's really changed?" "I think she's learned to manage her behavior better. Whether that constitutes real change or just better self-control, I don't know. But for Grace's sake, I hope it's genuine." Over the following months, I found myself thinking about Emma more than I had in years. Not with anger or pain, but with a kind of cautious curiosity. The woman I'd seen at Grace's wedding seemed genuinely different from the sister who'd tormented me decades earlier. When Grace had her first baby 2 years later, she asked if Emma could visit to meet her great niece. "She's been so good about boundaries," Grace said, "and I really want my daughter to know her great aunt." This request felt different from the wedding invitation. A new baby was vulnerable, precious, deserving of protection from any potential toxicity. But it was also Grace's child, Grace's decision about who she wanted in her daughter's life. "One visit," I agreed, "with us present. If it goes well, we can discuss future visits." Emma came for a weekend when the baby was 6 weeks old. She brought thoughtful gifts, practical items like baby clothes and books rather than attention-seeking extravagances. She helped with cooking and cleaning without being asked, and she was wonderful with the baby. Watching Emma hold my granddaughter, I felt a complex mix of emotions. This was my sister, the one who'd shared my childhood before she'd tried to destroy my adulthood. This was also Grace's beloved aunt, the woman who'd provided guidance and support throughout Grace's teenage years. "She looks like Grace did as a baby," Emma said softly, gazing down at my granddaughter. "Same little nose, same serious expression." Grace was a very serious baby, I agreed, surprising myself by responding. It was the first real conversation Emma and I had had in over 15 years. Brief, superficial, but not hostile. That evening, as Emma prepared to leave, she asked if she could speak with me privately. "I know we're not going to be close again," she said. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that seeing you with your family, seeing the life you've built, makes me happy. You deserved all of this. You deserved happiness and love and success. I'm sorry I ever tried to take that away from you. Thank you for saying that. I'm also sorry for all the years Grace didn't have an aunt in her daily life. I know she would have benefited from having family close by, and my actions robbed her of that." This apology caught me off guard. I'd never considered how Emma's banishment had affected Grace, how our daughter had grown up with a smaller extended family because of Emma's choices. "Grace turned out fine," I said. "Better than fine." "She did, because you and Michael are incredible parents. But she still missed out on having an aunt who could have been there for school plays and sleepovers and all those little moments that matter." Emma was right. Grace had missed out on typical aunt-niece experiences, and that was a loss worth acknowledging. "Maybe we can't change the past," I said carefully, "but we can make sure my granddaughter has different experiences." Emma's face lit up with hope. "Really? I'm not saying we're going to be best friends. I'm not saying I trust you completely, but maybe we can find a way to coexist peacefully for the sake of the next generation. I would like that very much." And so began the slow, careful process of rebuilding some version of a relationship with Emma. Not the close sisterhood we'd had as children, not the toxic dynamic that had defined our 20s, but something new, a cautious, boundaried connection based on mutual respect and shared love for Grace and her family. Emma visits twice a year now, always with advance notice, always with clear expectations about length of stay and activities. She sends birthday cards and Christmas gifts, but nothing excessive or inappropriate. She's learned to ask before offering advice, to respect decisions she disagrees with, to remember that she's a guest in our lives rather than a central figure. Our conversations are still somewhat stilted, still careful, but they're real. We talk about books, current events, our work. Emma tells stories from the crisis center, and I share updates about my counseling practice. We found neutral ground where we can connect without venturing into the painful territory of our shared past. Is this forgiveness? I'm not sure. I don't feel the warm reconciliation that movies and books often portray. I don't feel like we're truly sisters again in the way we once were. But I also don't feel the hot anger and deep hurt that defined my feelings about Emma for so many years. What I feel now is something like peace. Emma is part of my family's life in a limited way, and that's okay. She brings joy to Grace and my granddaughter, and she's learned to do so without causing drama or pain for Michael and me. Last month, my granddaughter took her first steps during one of Emma's visits. Emma was the one who caught it on video, the one who scooped up the baby and celebrated her achievement. Watching Emma's genuine delight in this milestone, I felt grateful that my granddaughter would grow up knowing her great aunt, that she'd have one more person in her corner cheering for her successes. "Look at that!" Emma exclaimed, showing us the video. "She's going to be walking everywhere now. She's growing up so fast," I said, smiling at my granddaughter's proud expression in the video. "They all do," Emma said softly. "I'm just grateful I get to see some of it." That evening, as Emma prepared to return to her hotel, my granddaughter reached for her, wanting one more hug. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she held this little person who loved her unconditionally, who saw her as simply Auntie without knowledge of our complicated history. "Thank you," Emma said to Michael and me, "for letting me be part of this, for giving me a chance to be better than I was." "You've earned it," Michael said simply. And she had. Through years of therapy, through consistent respectful behavior, through proving that people really can change if they're willing to do the hard work of healing. Our story doesn't have a fairy tale ending. Emma and I aren't best friends again. I still have scars from what she did, still maintain careful boundaries to protect myself and my family. But we found a way to coexist that allows Grace and my granddaughter to have a relationship with their aunt and great aunt without requiring me to pretend the past didn't happen. Sometimes healing doesn't mean going back to how things were. Sometimes it means finding a new way forward that acknowledges both the damage that was done and the growth that's happened since. Emma will never be the sister I thought I had when we were children, but she's become something I didn't think was possible. A person I can trust to be kind to my family even if I can't trust her with my heart. And for now, for the sake of the people we both love, that's enough.